What's up, guys? Late to the party, but we're going to do all the spoilers for Superman 2025. Let's go.
No matter what you do to me, Luthor, your plans won't work.
What's up, guys? Welcome to all the spoilers for Superman. If you will forgive me, I am sick. You could probably hear it in my voice. That is one reason why. That's why I'm kind of late to the game getting the spoiler review out. It literally hurts to talk. I was going to do this like 2 days ago, but I figured I need to get this done, all right? Because there are some things. Well, first off, I went and gave this movie a second watch. I think yesterday. Was it yesterday? What is today? Sunday? Yeah, so it was yesterday. The experience, not just the movie, but the experience was different. Now, I definitely want to talk about that too, but we will be diving into a lot of the spoilers because this movie definitely had a lot of them. And just, I guess, the overall like tone of the movie and how different it is. And by the way, after watching it the first time, I did go back and watch Man of Steel, that whole Zack Snyder trilogy, honestly, because I'm going to be doing a ranking of all the movies with Superman. I believe there are 10 of them that I'm going to be ranking. So, yeah, we'll get to that. But, yeah, let's dive into this, all the spoilers. And first off, let's talk about that second watch experience. And I think, and I've kind of discussed this before, advanced screenings are quite different than what you would call, I guess, your after-release screenings, where people are just like, I'm not like a Superman fanatic, but I feel like I want to go catch the newest movie out, and so I'll go do that. And so you get that crowd. Whereas in the advanced screening crowd, one, these are people that are getting to see the movie for free. So there's that. So they're going to be a lot more forgiving of the movie. And I'm not saying they're going to like lie about their opinion of the movie. No, what I'm saying is their overall mood is going to be so much better. I mean, they were able to get in to see the movie, because there's no guarantee when you go to an advanced screening that you will. When I saw Superman at the advanced screening, there were 60 people, 60, that they had to turn away from this showing. I felt horrible for those people, but yeah, that's the gamble. You know, somebody was waiting there. They came all the way from like Tampa to Orlando, and they were waiting there since 11 o'clock. And they were able to get in, of course. But can you imagine? Like we saw people walking up, and they were like, thinking that they were going to get into this thing, having waited 45 minutes. And yeah, not going to happen. So there is something interesting about the advanced screening experience. I've seen movies that I thought were utter shit, and the crowd is just reacting like they're watching The Dark Knight. You know, it's just human nature. It happens. We're given something for free, and we might be a massive Superman fan, and so we just be very, very forgiving. But when you're sitting and watching this, and you are experiencing the crowd's reaction as it's going on, it is a little bit intoxicating and contagious. And you do find yourself maybe laughing a little harder at the jokes, maybe crying a little harder at the more emotional moments and whatnot. So that first screening, you would have thought this was like the greatest freaking movie ever made. And I actually loved the movie when I watched it the first time. And I ended up doing a stream over on the horror show with Davey Deathray and Adam Does Movies and Cosplay Chris. And there were a good variety of opinions about the movie from everybody in there. So the fact that this movie is divisive is not surprising at all. But then going to that second viewing that I watched yesterday, I mean, it's a completely silent theater. There were a couple of chuckles, like say when Guy Gardner, you know, is dropping a few of his funny lines. There were a couple chuckles, but for the most part, it was a pretty silent theater, and it did sort of change the whole vibe of the movie, honestly, which was interesting. So I guess this is my like psychological analysis part of the review and how we react to movies in advanced screenings versus when we see them later, and maybe even like a couple of weeks after the release date. Even opening weekend, people are excited to see a movie, especially opening night. So take that into consideration as far as what my opinion is on this second watch. I will say I did not like this movie as much on the second watch, and I did give it like a Trapped on an Island. I was freaking elated when I walked out of it. And it's a frustrating movie for me after kind of letting it marinate and taking everything in, and especially giving it a second watch. And if anything, I get myself in trouble with my honesty But, you know, that's what I have to do sometimes. Sometimes you have to freaking piss a few people off in order to get your actual opinion across. And if you know my channel, you know that I'm an emotional movie watcher. And it can depend on my mood. It can depend on how many times I've seen the movie. When I saw Halloween 2018, that was like unreal to me. I was freaking out. I was shaking in the theater. Of course, my reaction to that movie after seeing it was that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But then after watching it a few times and it's settled, yeah, that's what happened. But with Superman, Superman is my number one favorite superhero, tied with the Hulk. I love those two characters. Call it my nostalgia. You know, when I was growing up as a kid, seeing Superman 2 being my first movie in a theater, and growing up with The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby. So every time a Superman movie comes, I am just elated, and I'm there day one, and this was no different. And I will say, seeing Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, oh my God, that movie, it really just got the feels for me. And this is me just sitting on my couch, watching it with my wife, and tearing up. Can you imagine seeing it in a theater? I was just completely elated watching Man of Steel this time, and I've seen the movie so many times, and I'll even shout out Cecil in that stream that we just did. Cecil is not a fan of Zack Snyder's trilogy at all, but he said, I have to freaking admit, Man of Steel is the better Superman movie. Yeah, he probably enjoyed James Gunn's Superman more, but as a Superman movie, I agree with him. I think Man of Steel, in my opinion, because I love the movie to death, is leaps and bounds better than this Superman. But I'm still happy that this Superman exists because, like I said before, I didn't want the same movie. I didn't want Man of Steel again, you know? And this does have some darker stuff in it as well. So let's dive into some of the spoilers about this movie. And I apologize if there's a lot of cuts. I'm literally having to stop and cough after every third sentence or drink something. So bear with me. So this movie is very action-packed. It never lets up, and it opens with the Hammer of Bravia fight, and Lex has come up with a way to fight Superman and beat him because he has studied every move that he makes. And so Lex is, talking with his crew, and he's calling out, different number sequences in order for him to fight and beat Superman, which he wholeheartedly does. And really, this movie is just a sequence of Superman constantly getting his ass handed to him. He loses the fight at the opening of the movie, which we don't see that fight. We open up with him on the, in Antarctica and having Krypto, take him to the fortress. But then he gets back up to go fight again. And what happens again? He gets beaten. He gets, there's no redemption. And so I think this movie's trying to set up a Superman unlike any before, where most of, we know that he is literally the Man of Steel. You cannot penetrate him. That did not sound right. This movie, because it's the opposite of that, and he gets his ass beat pretty much just like any other superhero. I was thinking of the movie Kick-Ass. Remember Kick-Ass? And he was a human being. And he probably gets his ass kicked less than Superman does in this movie. So I knew coming out of this movie, as much as I loved it, I was like, people are going to have a problem with that. I mean, I like the direction James Gunn was going, but I think he needed to kind of ramp up and show off the abilities, the strength that Superman had. And by strength, I don't mean lifting up kaijus, because yes, we see him do that, which is kind of counterproductive to the point, because if you can lift up kaijus, but you're fighting Hammer of Bravia that's, your size, scientifically it doesn't really match up. But, we're talking about comic books, right? So who cares? So then later, Lex makes this pocket universe. And so Superman just gets stuck in the pocket universe for the middle of the movie. And then you have that great scene where Metamorpho, played by Anthony Carrigan, who is one of my favorite new-coming actors. If you haven't seen Barry, he steals the freaking show in Barry as Hank. He is so funny, and his comedic timing is just so on point. And I think he was perfectly cast for Metamorpho, who has the baby Joey. And I do like that this movie really shows off how much of a Boy Scout, really, Superman is. And he keeps his promises. He promises him that he will save Joey if he helps him to get out of there, which he does. But Lex is a real son of a bitch, too, because beforehand, he's got one of the citizens of Metropolis, and he's doing Russian roulette with him, toying with Superman. That's what he does. Nicholas Hoult is the best Lex Luthor that we have had to date. There's nobody that can touch him. I do think Gene Hackman, for as entertaining as he was, he's a little overrated because he didn't feel like Lex Luthor from the comics as much. I think Nicholas Hoult comes right out of the pages of a comic book. He feels like that type of character. And you really buy him as a villain. I think in the past we've had issues with Lex Luthor because he is a human being and Superman could literally snap him like a twig just like that. This guy is so relentless and he keeps his distance from Superman and he always has something in front of him, a barrier in front of him. Be it a machine, be it a kaiju, be it a human being, whatever. But of course, Superman escapes that. That is probably, as far as like chill bumps go, that is probably the biggest moment when he comes out of that. You know, you're really rooting for him. You have that iconic scene with the child holding up the flag for Superman. That was a little bit of a letdown because the moment itself is awesome, but Superman doesn't come in to save the day. It actually is the Justice Gang that comes in to save the day. And so it's kind of like all that buildup. And it reminded me of the scene in Superman 2 when Superman had been gone for a while. He gave up his powers for Lois, and you're just waiting for him to come back. And then the city Metropolis is completely under siege from Zod. And so that moment when you see the newspapers start ruffling and then Superman shows up and the music, that was kind of the moment I wanted that to be. The kid holding up the thing, and then Superman comes in to save the day with a grand entrance. You didn't get that. You ended up getting Superman going off and fighting. We'll call him Bizarro Superman. That was one of the big twists in the movie. Is one of Lex's henchmen. Is it Ultra Lord? I can't remember what it was called, but he happened to be the Bizarro Superman. Did they call him Jarhead Superman? I can't remember, something like that. But yeah, so there's a big fight between them two at the end, and it was a nice surprise. But it sounds like I'm beating the movie up, and I'm trying to just really stress some of the issues I had. But overall, I still think it's a really fun movie. I think James Gunn can finally retire the giant monsters in his movies. And that was kind of my least favorite moment of the movie, was when he fights the big kaiju monster. Just because I've seen it so many times in James Gunn's movies. It's almost like a little staple of his. It's like a director's trademark, if you will. But the thing I definitely have to foot stomp is this movie has some really great things about it in the character department. And outside of Superman himself, I absolutely adored every character. And I think even like Jimmy Olsen was the best version of Jimmy Olsen. Lois was the best version of Lois. And so that's why the movie can be kind of frustrating, because it feels like a great James Gunn movie, but not a good Superman movie, if that makes sense, you know? And it breaks my heart because it has the romance aspect in there. And David Corenswet is a really great actor, and I like that interview that he's having with Lois and how he doesn't understand the whole political system that's going on right now. He just wants to save people, you know? And so this is definitely almost a coming-of-age Superman movie, because before this, he had never been beaten. And so I guess we get to the point where he's only beaten, just like constantly throughout the movie, up until the very end. Now, will I give this movie more watches down the line? Absolutely. I'm a Superman fan. And maybe my opinion will change one way or the other as time goes by. I am a James Gunn fan. Is this my least favorite James Gunn movie? Surely it can't be. I gotta say, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 3, I would put above this. I'd maybe put this one like equal to 2, because I love all three of those movies. But I don't keep it at like a Trapped on an Island. I kick it down to like a low purchase worthy. That's where it's at right now. So let me know in the comments, have you watched this more than once? Was your opinion a little shifted on the second watch? Maybe you liked it even better. Did you get to go to an advanced screening of this? Did you feel like that particular experience was different than maybe seeing it the second time? I find, human behavior in movies and fandom so interesting anyway, because at the end of the day, we're not robots, right? We're human beings with emotions, and that's why we get into movies in the first place, is because it's an emotional medium. And your mind could easily change from one viewing to another, okay? So anyway, that's all the spoilers. I'm sure I forgot some stuff spoiler-wise from the movie. Let me know down in the comments some of your favorite moments. Looking forward to hearing them. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do people on Fridays. Follow me, Drumdums, on my socials, support me on Patreon. Become a channel member, buy me coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drum them out.